What's up, guys? So today I'm doing one of the films that I've been waiting for an opportunity to do a bad film review on, mainly because I feel like it gets a worse rap than it deserves. Now, granted, it's not the greatest film. There are some very obvious flaws with it. There's only so much I'm willing to overlook. But today we are doing the bad film review for the extended cut of Green Lantern. I'm going to put personal bias aside because I actually, just as far as like entertainment value goes, I actually enjoy watching this movie. Very unpopular opinion there. But when looking at it sort of critically through the criteria that I use to review a film, it actually got a lower score than I thought I was going to give it. So it still didn't score as highly as I thought I was going to score it. But let's get straight into this and I'll explain everything. Alright, so if this is your first time watching one of my bad film reviews, basically I take a film that is generally hated by everyone, the ones that get like the bad or like low scores on like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic and IMDb and all the rest, and I review them to see if they've been judged too harshly for certain things. Now, while looking through some like the behind the scenes stuff and doing a little bit more research into this so I could give like an accurate score, I have learned that Green Lantern Hal Jordan has pretty strong cult following in the comics because of the character development that he's gone through over the years, and so in that respect I understand why those fans were very let down by this film. I do understand. So the low scores are a little bit more understandable to me, but I do still feel like it was judged a little too harshly. So I take a film and I separate it into 10 sections, being script, casting, acting, directing, cinematography, editing, soundtrack, special and visual effects, location and set design, and accuracy or originality. This one kind of sits in both camps, and I will, as I said, I'll explain more about that when we get down to that part. But first, the scores from like the sites that I mentioned before. So the Rotten Tomato critic score was 26%, is actually the lowest score of the ones I found. Metacritic gave it 39%, and IMDb gave it 55%, with the Rotten Tomatoes audience score being 45%, and the Metacritic user score being the highest at 58%. I can tell you that mine is higher than that, but not by much. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so as far as the script goes, I've given that a 6. I feel like, because this came out in 2011, which, if memory serves me correctly, is the same year that Captain America, the First Avenger, and the first Thor movie came out. Just double checking those facts now. Yeah, so Thor came out that year, and then I want Captain America. Yeah, cool. I was correct in that belief. So with those being the MCU films coming out that year, and sort of them gearing up for the Avengers, I feel like the script could have stepped up its game a bit. Wasn't a particularly bad script, which is why it's gotten at least higher than a 5. But it was very basic, very generic superhero origin story. So not anything special as far as the script goes. The cast, however, is a completely different matter. Obviously there's Ryan Reynolds, who has since gone on to be Deadpool, both versions, the good and the bad. But he's gone on to that. This film was the film that he and Blake Lively met. So that this is when they met and sort of started dating and stuff, which is kind of cool. Other actors that were in it, Mark Strong plays Sinestro. He's since been just about everywhere. He played Merlin in the Kingsman films. He's going to be Dr. Savannah in Shazam. He's been in... What else have I seen him in? He plays a very compelling villain. Anyway, I've seen him in other villainous roles. I can't think of them for the life of me. But he is a very, very good actor. We had Angela Bassett playing Amanda Waller. She has most recently portrayed Queen Ramonda in Black Panther. So very talented actress. We had, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Tamura Morrison playing Abin Sur. He was Jango Fett in the prequel trilogy. He's recently played Thomas Curry in Aquaman, so he was Aquaman's father. And he was also the voice of Chief Tui in the Moana movies. We had Jeffrey Rush as the voice of Tomar Ray, Michael Clark Duncan as the voice of Kilowog. I sincerely hope I don't have to tell you what they're out of because they're such big names. We had Peter Sarsgaard as Hector Hammond, and as far as I can tell, he's been in just about every genre of film. And he's done TV and theatre, and he's just everywhere. We had Taika Waititi sneaking in, playing the character of Tom, which is Hal's best friend. Most recently, he directed Thor Ragnarok, in case you were wondering why that name sounded familiar. So the cast is a phenomenal cast. Speaking for back in 2011, however, some of those names probably weren't as well known as they are now. But yeah, considering that we had Ryan Reynolds, Mark Strong, Jeffrey Rush, Michael Clark Duncan, I've given casting an 8. Their acting wasn't great acting, but it was better than average. So I've given it a 7. Somewhere in between the script and the performances, and probably some of the directing as well, are just little moments like the line at the end that Carol has, where she says, "That's really cool," just seems like it doesn't fit to me. I don't know, there are little bits there where I was like, that's really how we're gonna progress the narrative here. But that's just a little nitpick. The directing I gave a 6 to. Again, it wasn't... Who was the director? Never heard of him. Yeah, it was fairly basic directing. Obviously there are a lot of things that I would have done differently for it. But yeah, we'll move on. Cinematography was very basic. There was nothing... There were no shots that really particularly stood out to me that had anything specifically to do with the cinematography. So yeah, editing as well was fairly basic, so it gets a 6. Soundtrack had like... I've been able to find 6 songs. Online it says there's 7, but I cannot for the life of me find the 7th song to be able to sort of listen to it in its entirety. And of that, the only band that I actually listen to is Sum 41, and its song is right at the beginning, and then after that it's just mainly the score. Music itself is only really after that song, it's really only used in like the bar scene or at the Ferris aircraft party thing where Hal makes his like Green Lantern debut as a hero. So that gets a 5. Special and visual effects. Now I know that this is what this film gets picked on a lot for, because the super suit was animated, but in the comics it's composed of energy, so animating it was actually the way to go. I agree that they could have done better with what they did, but as far as it actually being composed of energy, that is accurate to the source material, so it gets points for that. I don't understand why his eyes had to turn blue when he had his mask on. Pretty sure it would have been just as fine if they'd left his normal eyes in, or if they'd made his eyes green, would have made sense, but they made them blue. So I don't understand that. And then, yeah. And then of course the difference between like what fear and will look like as far as energies. In the comics you can tell the difference because the will constructs are all nice clean shapes, whereas the fear ones are a little bit more sort of rugged and erratic, as fear makes you. So to have those basically just be different coloured versions of the same thing was a little bit of a letdown as well. But all in all, special and visual effects get a 7. The location and set design. Set design was a big part of this because Oa was completely animated. Like all of those scenes were mocap. So yeah, set design was definitely a big part of this. I did find myself, while I was watching this to do the review, I did find myself thinking if I was supposed to be like this, you know, like it's like the central hub for the Green Lantern Corps. Surely that means that there's actually a species other than the Guardians living there, like attending the farms and stuff, so that there's food on Oa to feed the Guardians when they come back from missions. Like, surely they don't just go, I'm hungry, and fly all the way back to their planet to eat, only to come back, receive a mission, and go to some point in their sector. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me a little bit. But again, that's just like the general concept, and I could make that statement about Oa in the comics as well. But as far as its design, I thought it was, like, it was believable enough, I guess. But like, it wasn't anything super spectacular. Particularly since, for the most part, all you really get to see is the Guardian Citadel, which is supposed to be above this like massive city, and for the most part you can't see the city when you're on those scenes. Like, you're just seeing like barren waste in the distance sort of thing, instead of the city. Or you're in a giant cave. But other than that, all the Earth locations were pretty cool. So set design and location gets a 7, which brings us to accuracy and originality, which I've given a 5 to, because the credit does say based on the character, which, most comic books do, it's like based on the character, but usually there's one particular storyline that is a major inspiration. In the special features, I found up to 4 comic book storylines that sort of give you the overall comic arc that he's had throughout the years. So, like, first off, there was he's like grounding him as a character instead of just making him this fantastical, man who can make light constructs from a ring. They actually grounded him a little bit in Green Lantern and Green Arrow back in, like, I think it was the 50s, I think they said, during the space race. After that came Emerald Twilight, which is around the same time as the death of Superman, in which an alien force comes to wipe out Coast City. In this, Parallax comes to Coast City and starts causing destruction and stuff. So in that regard, there's a little bit of a connection to that storyline. There was the comic arc 0 Hour, in which after Emerald Twilight, Hal starts to believe that had he been more powerful, he would have been able to stop the alien from destroying Coast City, and goes off to basically kill all the Green Lanterns and gain all their rings so that he can have all of the power of the will of every living being in the universe, so that he can rebuild Coast City and sort of I think it ends up being like reorganize the universe to his liking. And in this, and I'll explain how I come to this conclusion in a second, but in this, Parallax pretty much does the same thing. Like, he's going through and destroying civilizations so that he can sort of get rid of the guardians of the universe, so he can reshape the universe to his will, by using the power of fear. Then we have Green Lantern Rebirth is the last one, in which, because obviously that storyline did not go down well with fans, so Rebirth was like, hang on, no, it was the one that introduced the full emotional spectrum of rage, avarice, fear, will, hope, compassion, and love, and basically gave us the 7 cores. and it also introduced Parallax as an entity of fear that possessed Hal and made him do those things in the comics. And so that was sort of the introduction of the entity of fear known as Parallax, which is the villain in the film. And so in that regard, technically speaking, working our way backwards then with that retcon, was Parallax that was wiping out the universe. So as far as that goes, it is sort of accurate to that. Obviously, they skip all of that, which would have been really cool to see over a series of films. They skipped all of that and just basically went for, like, here's how he gets his powers, and then it's the big boss fight sort of thing. Which is not a smart way to write a film. But when weighing all of these things up, accuracy and originality gets a 5, which gives this film a total of 62. Remembering that the Metacritic user score was only 58, so I'm only 4 points above that. But I definitely feel that that's a more just score than an average of 45%. And I definitely don't think it deserves the Rotten Tomatoes score of 26. It's not a bad film. I know that Ryan Reynolds himself continually rips on this film, but it's not actually a bad film. It's just sort of a slightly better than average film. But yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts on Green Lantern in the comment section down below. I'd like to know if you think I was too generous, or maybe if I wasn't generous enough. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. If you want to see more bad film reviews, make sure you hit the subscription button and the notification bell. After I make probably 1 or 2 more, I'll start making a playlist, and then I'll leave that in the description down below, so that you can go and watch just me reviewing films that get a bad rap. And yeah, I will try to leave links to my socials, like my Instagram, my Tumblr account where I write my short stories. I recently sort of revamped my Twitter. I hadn't used it in like forever, so I sort of went through, got rid of all of my old tweets, changed my Twitter handle, updated my picture, all the rest, like did a complete do-over sort of thing. So I'll leave that down below as well. And yeah, I'd love for you to go and follow me on all those things, and I think that's everything. So until next time, guys, I will check you later.